Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I will be your host for today's show. This is actually the second leg of our California trek, where we find ourselves at the Women's Corporate Directors event that is being sponsored by Diligent and Equilar, and it's being hosted here at the beautiful Grand Reserve Inn and the Wilderotter Winery. So we couldn't ask for a more beautiful setting than we have here. And this is actually a special show because it's sort of like a little reunion. Let me introduce my guests and then you'll understand why. So first of all, to my immediate right is Denise Morrison, who is the former CEO of Campbell Soup and now serves on the board of Quest Diagnostics, Visa, and MetLife. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
And to her right is Maggie Wilderotter, who happens to be Denise's sister. And she is the former CEO of Frontier Communications, and she sits on the board of Costco, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, DocuSign, Cadence, and Lyft. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you so much, TK.
Thank you again for being our host for this great event. It really is a beautiful property.
Well, it's so nice to share it with you and so many great women that sit on boards of directors. And of course, my sister.
Yeah. So we have to explain a little bit about this reunion, because in 2011, you guys, which early on in my show career, came on as the CEO Sisters. And the interesting part was that very morning, you were both named to Forbes 50 Most Powerful Women in Business, which is obviously a one-time event for siblings. I'm not sure they've ever seen anything like that since or before then. But it was a real treat to have you guys on, hours after that was made public. But the interesting thing about the interview is that we didn't talk about business at all. We talked about your upbringing and what was that, and we talked about the infamous job jar. Well, we're not going to talk about the job jar today, but we are going to call you the corporate board sisters now, since you've retired from the CEO ranks. So, Maggie, first of all, I think before we get into some questions I wanted to ask, just take a moment on why holding an event like this is so important, and the networking and bringing in both seasoned women board members and sort of newbies as well.
Well, I really believe that Women on Boards is a really important initiative for all major companies, including small and medium business companies as well. And for the last couple of years, I've been very active, not just as a board member, but recruiting more women to boards. And I wanted to bring together a collective wisdom of experienced board members and new board members, and allow these women to coalesce around the key issues that we're all facing in the boardroom. Diligent was good enough to sponsor this last year, which was our inaugural event here at the Grand Reserve Inn and Wilderotter Vineyards. And because we had such a great response last year, we decided to do it again this year and expand it to be a little bigger. And I must say, the last day and a half has been an amazing experience. I know for everyone that was here, but including myself and Denise, who are seasoned executives and seasoned board members, there was a lot we all took home from a take-home learning value.
Well, it certainly was interesting to be a part of it, and I thought that the sessions were just terrific. So
the topics were so timely, and the panels were so prepared, and the questions and answers, there was a lot of engagement from the group. I thought it was terrific.
And both Brian Stafford at Diligent and David Chun at Equilar did great jobs in moderating those panels too. So we had a couple of our guys in the room working with us, which was really terrific.
So again, I told you that we weren't going to revisit the childhood and anything in the past, but I do want to revisit your careers, and I hope you won't get upset with me, because you guys have long, storied careers, both in the C-suite, and look at the boards that you sit on. You have an amazing amount of experience, okay? So I thought it's a perfect opportunity for me and for our audience, for me to sort of have you be introspective about sort of what you see in the boardroom today, and also what affects it on the outside. And I'm going to put it in two questions. First of all, one is sort of, I'll ask you first, what worries you about trends that you see that you hope, will change. And then, so we end on a good positive note. I'll ask you sort of what encourages you or excites you in the way of, what you see that's positive. So, Denise, I'll start with you on when you look at the, the landscape in the boardroom and also out, sort of what trends sort of worry you about where governance and investors and all that is going?
Yeah, I think first of all, boards, from the time I first went on a board till now, boards have accepted a lot more responsibility and accountability. And as a result, boards have had to get more involved in the strategy of the company, the external forces affecting the company, the talent in the company, not to manage it. There is a line between governance and management, but certainly an oversight. And I think that has put some pressure on boards to raise their game and make sure that they have the skill sets and competencies to be able to do that kind of work. I think second of all, there's that tension between short-term performance and building a long-term enduring company.
Great point.
Is really important, and it worries me a bit, but it also excites me, because I do think that having been a CEO and now being a former CEO on a board, you do have to deliver for the company in the moment, but you have to make sure you've got the capital allocation and the resource allocation to set the company up for future success. And those would be my top two.
Yeah, well, sustainability, people try and link that word sometimes to climate control or something. Really, it's about positioning your company to be successful long term. So I hope they separate those terms at some point, because sustainability is clearly something that we've always worried about.
Yeah. Well, there's environmental sustainability, and then there's sustaining a company in an age of technology disruption, and for example, one of the forces.
Yeah.
And I do think that that calls for a much longer view in terms of value creation and setting up the systems and processes and the fundamentals to be able to take the company forward in a whole different way.
Yeah, good points. Yeah. Same question to you, Maggie.
Well, Denise covered a lot of the territory, so I'm not going to, rehash that. But I do think one of the big differences that I've seen in board service is the transparency of the work of the board. In the past, that work was sort of behind the curtain. Now it's out front, and it needs to be out front for our shareholders and our stakeholders. I also think that the members of the board are more actively involved with what takes place with the culture of the company, how the company does business, how do they live their values, do we have the right people in the right seats on the bus, and being able to ask the right questions in order to get answers that can inform us to help the company make better decisions. I'd also say that the risk profiles of our companies have changed, and companies go through stages and processes just like individuals do. And the help that needs to be on that board depends on the stage the company's in. And with different risks affecting different companies, you have to have the right expertise on board. So in the past, you could serve on boards for 15 to 20 years, and there wasn't much change. But today, with technology disruption and transformation of consumer tastes and how businesses do business and the global economy that we have, you have to make sure your board has the right capabilities in order to help those companies be successful. So there's a number of changes that are going on, and I think they're exciting changes, but they're also scary because we're into a lot of unknown territory for companies to help them be successful and be sustainable for the long run.
Like everything that happens in the board space, there's a pendulum that sort of seems to swing, and that's what worries me a little bit about your comment about transparency, because we were in the dark ages, so the bright light was very important to get certain things out. Well, like is typical, proxy advisors or other are pushing for just transparency. Well, no one wants to have somebody sitting on their shoulder sort of reviewing every decision that's made at the board level. Right. I think they're going to, that's one of my worries, is they're going to create an environment that people don't want to serve because, somebody's just sitting criticizing every statement that you make. To me, I'd rather have investors participate more in who's on the board and then let them do their job, that type of situation.
It takes courage to serve on boards today, especially public company boards, because you're going to have to make tough choices. And choices mean that some people are happy and maybe some people aren't. But if you do it in the best interest of creating long-term shareholder value, and you're open and transparent about the why you make those choices, I think it will be more helpful. But you're right, it's a journey.
Yeah. So let's flip, because we always like to end on a positive note. And so and Maggie, I'll start with you this time. What that you're seeing gives you encouragement or excitement or passion about what you're doing because of trends that you think are positive?
Well, I do think that in the boardroom today, more diversity in the boardroom has really made a difference, I think, in the discussion. And I'm not just talking about diversity of gender, which is improving. And over my career, it's been great to see that momentum build, especially over the last 12 to 18 months, and more women getting on boards. But it's also the diversity of experience. It's the openness of the discussion. It's less about form and it's more about substance. And that makes me feel a lot better that the input that we're getting from companies and the exchange of information with the board and the advice of the board back to those companies on how to do continuous improvement in their positioning in the marketplace, in their delivery of products and services for customers, in looking outside and not just inside on trends that could affect us in the long run, provides a very rich environment to experiment and innovate. And companies have not been able to do that in the past. I also think that smaller companies, especially technology companies, are bringing innovation to a forefront that it's now become part of every company's environment. Large companies that have been around for a long time, like companies that Denise and I have run in the past, are now technology companies, as well as companies that are delivering products and services. I'm excited about that because I think we can use technology to really morph and change the way companies do business.
Positive question to you, Denise.
Yeah, I think I'd build on what you were saying in terms of the digital disruption that's going on. Although expressed originally as a worry and a challenge, it's also a major opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for companies to recreate themselves, leveraging new tools that can create value that just didn't exist before. And we see that over and over again, whether it is in food, whether it is in payments, insurance. Every industry is going through it. But what it does is it requires a great relationship between board and management and a tremendous alignment on strategy. Mm-hmm. So taking more time to really take the complex issues that this disruption creates and sift through what is the company going to do, what is it not going to do, and what does it need to go forward. I think that's wildly exciting.
And it's a dialogue that's now ongoing versus once a year.
Right. It's not the check a box we did strategy. It is really living and breathing and course correcting. That's equally as important. And then calling out, okay, we placed this bet, but actually we need to pivot now and go here. And quite frankly, I think that's very healthy in today's world.
And one thing I will add that I'm also very excited about is kind of this transformation of power of how companies run. It's not just hierarchical anymore in command and control. It's also horizontal. And technology has sort of brought that to the forefront of whether it's crowdsourcing or it's social media. You're getting inputs from lots of different places that you can synthesize and help you make a lot better decisions.
Yeah, I think the other thing that excites me too is the fact that, look, it is no secret that capitalism in our country is being challenged. And I believe in free enterprise, but I also think capitalism has to have a heart too. And I think the emphasis on ESG in the boardroom now will bring out some of the great things that companies are doing in the communities and challenge them to even accept more responsibility where it makes sense for their business and their shareholders. And the two are not, in different lanes. You can make a difference and also make a profit. And so I think that's wildly exciting as well.
And people still are the most important asset in every company. That's enduring.
Yes.
Well, Corporate Board Sisters, I want to thank you. It's always engaging to hear each of you feed off each other. I appreciate you taking the time. And I can't think of two better role models, not only for women directors, but also for directors as a whole. I have to commend you on all that you've done to set this level at the right place for others that follow. So thank you for taking the time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
TK.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.